god, oh god, no. And the track hearing is Demetori, Crazy Xenomorph. It's a very interesting track, I fucking love it. It's so heavy and it's one of the first Demetori tracks I've ever heard on top of obviously other tracks that exist. But I just find it so fascinating, it's so heavy and I think it's in these standards. I transcribed this ages ago, much like most of the other songs. But it's just so interesting. But it's so well composed too, like the chromatic rhythm, the clean chorus I think that is, and eventually going into the lead riff, the melody, and then a chorus later on which is insane, and there's some crazy bridges, a crazy solo, crazy breakdown, it's all sorts of crazy. I guess you could call it Xenomorph. But I just fucking love this track. It's just one of those tracks which is just really different and special. So it should be commended because it's just so unique too. No doubt. But yeah, there's not really much else to say about this track. It's just pure symphonic metal chaos, and that's what's so great about it. And it really goes without saying, it is truly a great track. So yeah, I don't really know what else to answer, so let's move on to the first topic. Thought we could start. I don't know, something annoying about that Economist thing that came out, which I've been watching Gary's Economics on this about how they don't want a wealth tax because there's already an inheritance tax and it means that they have to pay a lot less. It's fucking ridiculous, but I'm starting to realise now that if there is like an opportunity, and as someone put in the comments, there are cases where they just do tax dodging. Admittedly, I'm not knowledgeable on taxes enough to know what exactly this means, other than dodging having to pay it. But I'm frustrated by the fact that wealth taxes also aren't as scary as they actually should be. Because I think 2% is even too low of a number for the ultra wealthy. And we're talking like billionaire class. I think it should be 5%, like, to be fair. Bernie Sanders seems to think the same thing, weirdly enough, and I think it's fair. You know, they're making that income like massively every year, and if they have too much money, they shouldn't have it. As simple as that. There isn't anything in the world that even costs $1 billion as far as I'm aware. It's just like a solid gold house, which probably even costs much less than that, to be fair. But they're not even doing that, and it's not even that they're doing something that warrants the amount of money they're earning. Where I would understand something like someone working in the military or being in a stupidly high government position where they could be, you know, targeted and off as well, obviously. But something like a CEO position, owner of a company, it doesn't make sense unless there is that risk of being succeeded? I can't remember the term. But those are the only times when it matters, but even then you don't need shit tons of money. All you need is a good armoured vehicle, maybe a vehicle with upgrades, bodyguards, other guards, and that's it really. Well, you don't really need much else as far as I'm aware. But it's so fucking ridiculous to see that. And I just can't comprehend why anyone would be against wealth taxes, but I guess I have to bring in my own 2 cents in this, I guess, or 1 penny, technically speaking. I think that wealth taxes need to be more punishing. So on top of the ultra wealthy being 5%, obviously anyone below the billionaire line should be like 2%. I also think tax dodgers, universally, not, well, obviously work across people you can give or take, but tax dodgers entirely, billionaires, millionaires, whoever it is, their taxes should increase every time they fail to pay it, and it should increase by 1% to 2% for every month that passes where they don't pay it. And I think that's going to be one of the biggest fuck yous to those cunts who take from us, who take from the economy and leave us to suffer. And I think that's also one of the best ways you can address this, in my opinion, because it not only gets them their asses into gear, they also know the difficulty when it comes to having to let go of a source like that, a resource. Because yeah, money is like a resource, it is the way that we function these days. That's unfortunate, because there would have been better ways to do that, obviously. But that's the reality. And I think that we really need to have a serious argument about punishing the ultra wealthy. And also I'd probably have something as well where we would also gather assets about rather resources about what they've done over the years, like how much they've earned, and then tax them based on that, essentially. So when they started to become ultra wealthy, we should charge them for that, for crimes against humanity, obviously, because that's what this is. And the fact that they've had so much fucking wealth over the years that hasn't really been taxed before, so we also give ourselves a head start based on that, and I think they need to pay it. So we need to be absolutely fucking brutal with taxing and make it as difficult as possible for them. Because the only way I see things changing is by putting them in their fucking place, stopping them from becoming stupidly rich people, and obviously give the money to the economy where other people can then make a living and even make success. Because that's what a lot of these things are, and that's why I say it's a crime against humanity. It's a crime against community as well. Because they're trying to get rid of any sort of local business. In fact, I haven't eaten at a fast food chain for quite a while now, at least like 2 years, I'd say. Actually, no, it's about over a year, I'd say. Actually, the last thing I had was a muck plant, but that was sort of a visit thing. Not really much I could do about that, because they won't eat anywhere else. Especially as I was like, no, I don't really want to eat there. It's just kind of like, there's no point in arguing about it though. You know, I don't really put money into that sort of thing anymore. And that's why I've started to donate to organisations over the years now, even at a deficit to my own income. Well, I say income, but I don't know what you call it. Benefits, I guess. That's why I do it. It's because I think that there are worthy causes out there, and the biggest threat to them, the thing that will take them away, are corporations. You know, the moment that the meat lobby starts to get really antsy about how plant-based foods exist, there's going to be a massive lawsuit in that, and they're going to try and sue them for everything that they have, every single company. Literally drain them from beyond, essentially. This is also why I think the taxes could be really useful as well, because it can be redistributed, and also I'd also probably put the tax on the lawsuits. So I'd possibly even make a fund for like a corporate related lawsuit where, you know, if they have to pay up, they have to increase that amount of money by a certain amount. So, you know, if they're like suing someone for let's say Nintendo vs Power World, I think that's a good example of recent. I don't know how much it costs exactly, or how much they're even asking for, or what. But let's say it's like $10 million they're asking for damages for obviously posting a game that sort of infringes on their property, even though it's not their property. But they've changed it, and so Power World have won, essentially, Pocket Pair. But because they've ask for that much, and there is no reward seemingly for Pocket Pair, I think that number that they're asking for should be like quadrupled, because Nintendo are a massive company, and I think they should have to pay out for compromising what is essentially like a small developer team for something that's so fucking trivial. Are you kidding me? That's insane. And they obviously should never have been sued, because Nintendo are lazy, Pokemon specifically are lazy, and they don't really deserve the money. So no, they shouldn't, Pocket Pair shouldn't have to pay anything, even if they do lose. And that's why I think this is so stupid. I think corporations think that training someone from the waist down obviously is bad, but also I think they should have to pay as well to seize assets when they are in the right. So let's say there's like a mobile game that they're suing for literally using their own property. Like actually using it, not just ripping it off like Powell did. There's a warrant there for suing, which I think anyone can agree with. And it is obviously like theft and stuff. But if you're saying like they need to take out all the assets and remove everything, including like destroying things, then you need to be able to fucking provide the money for that. Because if that's such a threat to you, you'd be able to pay the penny to you that it would cost them a fortune to do. It's as simple as that. So they should be given money and compensation for it. I think corporations should always have to, or the one with the most money, regardless of whether it's a win or lose, should always have to peddle the amount of money it costs to save these things, to prevent further damage, or just to stop things. I don't know how to describe it. It's like if they seize an inventory, a corporation, I think the person who's lost that should be compensated, assuming it's obviously not something terrible. But it's like quite an obvious thing. It's like in the UK when Sega seemingly bought a police station rather, and told them to raid this house full of old Sega hardware, which apparently had source material on it and source code. And seemingly these guys never got any compensation or apologies for it. So I don't know what's going on with my glasses, it's weird. But they got arrested and they couldn't find anything. There's nothing wrong with these people. And they also got punished for it. Like, it's insane. I think whenever there's a punishment dealt by a corporation, there should not only be a tax, because if they're using a service like this, they should have to pay you for it. And not to mention, when it comes to taking assets like that, which weren't even the fault of the people there, the people who had this Sega hardware, they need to pay the compensation, the money they would have lost in that time, the money that they've lost from this. They need to compensate. And I consider that like a serious crime. So again, this is what I mean when we need to be harsher on the wealth and the ultra wealthy. You cannot ignore this stuff, because fundamentally, if we do not do it, we're just gonna get fucked completely. It's just insane. So I don't really know what I'm starting here, but I just find it baffling overall. The world really needs a wealth tax. But also, if anyone hasn't figured it out yet, because this took me a while to figure out, to be fair, you need to. Like how I post like that. But you need to understand that it's literally a tax of those in the country who are not asking a US billionaire like Jeff Bezos or even Elon Musk, unfortunately, to pay taxes for a country they're not even in unless they have assets in these countries. which is a difference. I think even then there's like a different type of tax that they should have to pay for that. But it's like so important to address it as that. So they can't really escape it. But even then, if they actually try to dodge it by pretending that they don't have any money and they just obviously put it on an offshore account or something, so they can't actually be charged. And again, that increase in tax should apply, and there should also be legal repercussions for that, including a worldwide search and getting into contact with other countries where they too will be paid if they seize obviously the relevant person. So maybe Elon Musk does have assets in the UK, for example. Okay, he has assets, we need to tax him. If he dodges the tax, we then increase it, we increase the amount of tax, and we also put an arrest warrant out for him to other countries so they can arrest him, send him here, and then he has to pay. Up front, no questions asked, no strings attached, everything, just pay. And so that's how it should go. But I think it's baffling that people don't even want this. You don't want literal criminals and thieves to be arrested, which just shows the amount of corruption and stupidity that people have. It's absolutely fucking insane. So I don't really understand. It's just nuts, really. The world is obviously going to shit. I don't know. But I think a more punishing tax obviously would work. It'd have to. Because I think people are scared of them running away, but the idea is, even if they do run away, there's a reward in it for the relevant people, the relevant parties. Obviously, if another country gets them, they'll get paid handsomely, I suppose. A portion of that money, obviously the tax. And that's just really important. And obviously we get our money in that sense, being the ones that are taxing. So yeah, there ain't no else to add, to be honest. And I think this is important, and I think people will actually come to fucking understand this at one point or another. But if you follow like a negative media, well, you get fucked. That's always how it works. If you keep in that fucking shithole, you're just gonna end up worse. You're gonna end up in a worse situation. You won't ever see goodness in your life. Essentially, you're better off dead, like it has to be said. Because that's what's gonna happen. You're gonna find a world where you're suffering and you just don't want to live anymore. Because the world is just fucking horrible. But that's the reality here. So, obviously that's a warning. I'm not joking about this is real. I'm not making the threat here is the billionaires. That's what I mean by this. That's what I mean by you're better off dead. Because they're creating this hellhole. Anyway, I don't have anything else to add. So, let's move on. Didn't realise the Triforce podcast was 10 years old now. It surprised me actually. But it's kind of interesting. Because I only learned this because of not really a controversy, it's just a funny drama thing that happened. But there was something being hosted on the York subreddit in London, I believe, where they're doing a march for the Triforce podcast. I can't remember if it was like 10 miles or what they said. Just very interesting. But they set this up. They had an entire schedule and stuff and location, which is interesting. And it's just meant to be a celebration of the Triforce, obviously. And yeah, just kind of unsurprisingly, not many people turned up, I'll be honest. I guess, like, in seriousness, the reason why this happened is probably because even though people love the podcast, I think meeting up about something like this, which even isn't. What? Even, sorry. I just made up a word. Like, isn't even. Okay, isn't is a word now. But isn't like like a big deal in that sense. Like, it definitely feels like, say, the Joe Rogan podcast, even though that's shit. But even then, I think sometimes the podcast can be a bit sort of overwhelming or kind of controversial at times, and I think that might be a part of the reason. So I think people prefer to be listening to it and understanding it from, obviously, safety of their own home, obviously behind a screen. If people do the act, myself included, of appearing like quite conversational and knowledgeable. Not many people realise it, but there is a lot of social pressure. It's like, I like to equate it to Bleach, for example, where I feel like people's spiritual pressure is like off the charts. And that's what you get in real life. I don't know if my spiritual pressure is high, but I know it is to me when I see other people. But yeah, I think that's why, but I also just wanted to say this to obviously celebrate the fact that it's actually one of my favourite podcasts on the internet at the moment. Because it's just got so many good things going for it. Admittedly, some controversial topics and things I disagree with. For the most part, it's entertaining and it can be interesting as well. I think Lewis is very guilty of trying to sort of try and know everything all at once. To be honest, myself included, I guess I'm guilty of that, because I don't realise it all the time. And he can also make some great jokes as well. It's definitely been one of the pillars of the podcast. Also, as they've expanded, they've gone into like the mailbag and stuff, and they read out emails, which has made it a little more interesting in ways. But we've also got Baron, who's surprisingly less controversial, but still controversial in a way. I don't mean that in the nicest way possible, I guess. Because also, like, Baron has some interesting opinions here and there, but also some very questionable choices and actions. I remember when he admitted to being a fucking gooner on Instagram, and literally everyone in the comments, Reddit, YouTube, were saying this isn't a good father figure. And I sort of have to agree with that, actually. I've had a sort of weird experience similar to this, believe it or not. And it just makes me realise that, even though we have a right to goon, I don't think you should necessarily be doing it publicly or even just like en masse. Like, I think there's a really big fucking horniness problem in the world at the moment, and it doesn't help. I think that so many of the problems with people's like urges and stuff come from not controlling it properly, and it's such a big issue. I think when you fail to control it, it gets out of hand, obviously, and it causes complications, it causes problems. And I think it's something that I think the world needs to address somehow. I'm not exactly sure how, but maybe awareness posts and maybe even like needs to be in charities and stuff, charities, organisations even, so places where they campaign for better mental health and stuff. So that's another thing. Being a parent, definitely a great entertainer as well. That's often why I come to his streams as well, and also just can be a decent bloke as well, too. I remember during like the local elections stuff, I think, can't remember what he was streaming. I wish I could remember. Also the football manager stuff and just watching random YouTube videos in between. Kind of entertaining, but I remember the local elections, and there was like quite a few reform people going in the chat saying like why the fuck aren't you against immigrants and stuff or something like that. Birium giving him a bit of his mind, which is brilliant. Yeah, that's really it for Birium. Like, gonna be a great entertainer. And then obviously there's Sips. He's just a dad. But that's like 10 years of the Triforce. There's obviously so many good memories from that and so many good clips. I think that's why it's also quite popular as well. I think each one gets about 10,000 views or more, which is not bad. I could be mistaken on that. But honestly, the reason why I still listen to it is because it's still interesting and entertaining. I love the impressions that everyone does. And, you know, it gets a giggle out of each one of them as well. It's fucking funny. Oh, there's that recent one. I'm trying to think what that recent impression was. I thought it was like so fucking funny. It was like one of the best ones. Was that a favourite? I have a feeling I favorited it because I do this every now and then. Where's my favourites? What the fuck has YouTube removed it? Starmer? There it is, favourites. Oh, it's probably not going to show recent now. Oh, it does. Okay, it's not on there, but yeah, I swear, like, one of the recent episodes was like actually really funny because of the impressions. There's really something that just made it so entertaining, made it so different. What was it? I really want to know. I need to fucking look at this. I'm not going to rest until that happens. Mr. Big Shot's very important in A-Trip. I think they're doing an impression of like a British person or something. Wait, was I still watching this? Does that sound right? I don't know. Maybe in the comments. Somebody's in the comments don't always mention it, so okay. Here is Turbo Wonk. Let's see, is there anything? I don't know, but it's like a really funny comment. I wish that was episode 356. It's genuinely entertaining. This is why I love the podcast. Discussions can be interesting too, mainly frustrating at points, but it can be interesting. But I just wanted to celebrate 10 years. Happy 10 years, I guess. It's one of the only podcasts I've stayed with consistently. And I'm not really easily bored by either, which is, I think, a big compliment. I think a lot of people probably find that. Yeah, and even then, like, the sponsored parts can be interesting too. Even though they're not really something that appeals to me, I just find them entertaining. So yeah, that's that. Let's move on. I don't usually go into true crime stuff, but sometimes the reason I don't go into it is because it's too dark or too brutal, and it usually is, depending on what it is. And sometimes people just absolutely do not understand what they're talking about, and this video essentially proved it. So this one by UWU crime storytelling called Killer leads cops into the most horrific murder scene. And it just seems like nobody actually understands what's going on, and there's no mention of what it could be. But I know, given my time in researching mental health, this sounds like a case of schizophrenia. Just blatantly. And 100% it can be dangerous, it can be lethal. But it isn't always lethal, and oftentimes it comes down to what the people who are overlooking the schizophrenia are saying. So it's really important to understand that sometimes it is detectable and other times it's not. So in this case, it clearly was hard to detect because somehow, even despite all the checks, he got through. But also, it's really hard to even check that sort of thing because you don't want to plant things into people's heads when they may hear a voice and suddenly it's like from their memory, as it probably recollects from memory anyway, they hear something like kill, and kill would obviously mean to murder. And so the voices in the head start repeating that, and assuming the mental health ward or psych ward or were obviously asking these questions like, do you want to kill someone? That's not going to fucking help. If you determine what the issue is, and it is schizophrenia by the sounds of it, you should be trying to discourage as much as possible things that are harmful. And especially for like a psych ward, do not put them with other people who will no doubt be wanting to kill someone. But it is baffling to me, the response to this, where people seem to think maybe Matt is not mentally ill here, maybe the family are mentally ill. Just insane amounts of responses which are just completely disconnected from any actual sort of reasoning. And thankfully Matt's dead. That's both sad and good, really. But it really shows how complicated the situation is when it comes to mental illness and the understanding of it. Because people truly do not understand what it is about. That seems very apparent from the way society has treated each other. It's just some insane responses to mental health. And it doesn't help at all. And, I'm sort of... I claim that I'm mentally ill, but that's on the perspective of just being, well, one part of me. I don't know. Is it fucked in the head? But OCD, I have that. That makes me fucking crazy. It drives me nuts as well. And autism as well can drive me crazy. So it just doesn't benefit anyone in reality. I just don't really know what the best response is to this sort of thing. And yeah, there is obviously a bit of sympathy for Matt here. But at the same time, it's hard to know what to do. This is such a morally grey area. Because there's no such thing as saying no to the voices. The best way to visualise voices as far as schizophrenia comes, I could be wrong in this, but based on everything I know about it, it literally just talks to you constantly and pushes things into your head. It's the same way that you can have a hallucination. It's just there, and it won't necessarily go away. But it's just trapped in your head and you hear voices, and you possibly even see things. That's why it gets so complicated. It literally distorts your perception of reality by being a part of it. And that is in itself a massive danger. And if there's no treatments as well, then things get worse. Now there is one thing I'd say where, in this case, if Matt had a diagnosis before becoming a father, 100% he should not have stayed a father, and even during it, he should not have. Because I think even if you are hearing voices, as a father you're probably going to have problems with that. And it does hit home towards me because I unfortunately was physically abused a bit, just based on misbehaviour. Also I had bruises and stuff. But I'm autistic, and the reasoning that was given in this was that, according to people in the psych ward, it is because of apparently Jack's autism, which it really turns everything on its head when you hear that, because it makes you realise that actually this also could possibly be an excuse. It could be the voices, and that's again why it's such a morally grey area. think it's better to stay on the safest option on this topic specifically. Obviously, I think imprisonment, but psych ward. Maybe the psych ward won't be helpful. But there's no coming back from it. And I didn't hear the response that people were saying in the comments about the family saying it's just a bump in the road. Just fucking insane. Like, you're never going to recover from that. You're never going to recover from a child dying in your family. That's just nuts. I think they should be investigated, to be honest. That's just a crazy thing to say, regardless of what issues that Matt has. That absolutely should not be a thing. It also just made me wonder, maybe they should have their children taken away, assuming these people are all justifying it. Again, I don't know what to say on that. As I've said, mental health, mental illness, both are pretty complicated things. They're not simple, and also given my experience with medication, which is also another part where it sort of hits home kind of hard, is not everything is solvable with a fucking pill. I wish people would get off their fucking high horse for that sort of shit, because that's not how it works. Mental health is a complicated thing, and you do need to understand where sometimes you can get immediate help, but other times you can't. And especially in the US, I imagine it's far different, because in the UK we have free healthcare and plenty of organisations. But in the US, it's been completely shattered. And that's causing big disruptions. It's causing so many fucking problems around the world. I'm trying to think, I got distracted by apparently an OAP being up. There's so many crazy things. So like, I'm trying to think what else there is to say here. Again, like, I can't stress enough that this situation is just really fucked. It's just so fucked up and so devastating as well. Obviously jacked into surface, and that's one of the big things here. You know, a lot of things in society make it worse. Because why the hell was he even thinking that autism was a bad thing? Because other people told him. In fact, I reckon it's probably the family. It's just, yes, a wild accusation here, but I think there is a very high possibility that someone told him it's bad, and that's where it came from. And so that's why possibly these faults started happening. Yeah, again, if these are to be believed. So I think that's really important to acknowledge. So I just think it's absolutely nuts when it comes to this topic again. Just absolutely insane. There were warning signs. There are people who are actively creating danger, creating problems. That's why it's not necessarily nice things and why devastating stuff like this happens. You know, ignorance is bliss, but it's also hell. Because whilst you're ignoring things on the other side, you're also creating tons of problems. Essentially, it's like the silence is violence narrative, which is becoming more and more true as the day goes by. If you are aware of something and you understand it, you're obligated to speak about it however you can. Obviously, if you're staying silent, if you know, for example, reform in the UK is a political thing, reform and restore are inherently harmful to the country, you are obligated to say that. And a lot of the actual voters who know this are dishonest. And so they create that harm. They're being silent about it, and they just create so much more difficulty in that. But it's the same with mental health and mental illness. If you know something about someone and you're not talking about it, then you're putting them at risk. If you know someone's feeling down or suicidal, if you haven't talked to anyone about it, don't talk to the fucking police, because I hear that too much. Then it's just going to backfire. It's going to lead to harm. It's going to make people's situations worse, and especially the people with the issues to begin with. So again, it's just insanity. And that's again why this isn't an easy situation to even talk about. That's why I'm not even going to say things like, oh, just convict him, just behead him, when that doesn't even solve the problem. It's not going to bring Jack back either, and if anything, I think someone living with these issues, whether or not they've done it, sometimes I think, as per the suicide as well, sometimes that's just the best way out of the situation. You've taken one life, and regardless of whether you knew whether you did it or not, I think sometimes the only way out of that situation is just to take your own life instead. It's just so difficult to tackle. In this situation, there are so many things that are wrong and so many things are, again, not necessarily right, but they explain a lot of things. I really do think it is a case of schizophrenia, and this is the thing, the stigma of schizophrenia only makes it worse, which is why I tended to not make fun of it. Because for some people it's livable. I know someone who lives with it, but for other people it's not. But I can tell you now, they go through more suffering than any person you can ever fucking meet, because there's so many complications with it. You either are paranoid, you either get voices in your head, or you hallucinate everything. It really changes reality. And to live alongside that is a complication. It is a real problem. And to be honest, I'll be honest, I want to beat up my other housemate for fucking picking on someone with schizophrenia. But, I'll be arrested for that, obviously. It's just so fucking frustrating. Because again, this isn't an easy situation to address. It's better to just be neutral, just treat them like a human being, but don't put stupid ideas into their head. In fact, one of the things I heard from said schizophrenic person was that he thought Trump was a good person. Like, who fucking planted that in his head? That is just insane. Who in their right mind would say Trump is a good person? Ever. The guy's a convicted paedophile and rapist, so why would anyone believe Trump is a good person? From that, not to mention prices going up, everything he's doing online. Just absolute insanity, and I think that's probably the reform voters and the place I live in just fucking him up. Honestly, is what it sounds like. It's kind of a problem with politics as well. It'll make mentally ill people more mentally ill. And I'm not going to ignore the fact that these situations probably tie together in some cases. There's a possibility that even in Matt's situation there's something politically that's let him down, as well as Jack. Jack is the real victim here. And it's because of politics that necessarily won't have any changes. I don't know when this murder happened, to be clear. If I had to guess, it's probably recent. But it really shows a letdown, because apparently there was like a release for Matt in 2020 from a psych ward or a hospital visit, one of those. And they didn't clock on to the fact that he maybe had problems. And then he was going in and out of constant therapy, and by this time obviously he had a child. But he shouldn't have had a child. I think sometimes there are reasons why people with these issues cannot be trusted with children. It entirely depends on their psychiatric needs and wants and stuff. And even then, I think there is even possible job applications where these people, schizophrenic or maybe even in my case autistic, should have carers on the side to look after both the child and the adult, where the adult's maybe having issues, maybe about to stir up trouble. Like, fuck, if I had a carer when my dad was around, for example, I'd probably be much safer than I am now, and much more out there and open. But all that trauma is piled up, and it's led to me being very quiet and very conservative, I guess, for lack of a correct term. Conservative as in inside myself, or whatever you call it. I conserve everything within myself, all my opinions and voices and stuff, and I don't really ever get to let them out. But, a carer would have solved that situation, and you can't rely on a girlfriend/wife to do that, because they'll obviously side with them, and especially if they're not biological, then I'm just going to experience terrible things. Even then, I think, depending on what the excuses were, and as Matt said, he had like was his girlfriend or... Oh wait. Oh, was he separated from Jack's mother? I'm not actually sure now. I feel like if the mother knew this, she should have also pursued for, let's see, proper care, like only have the child around in supervision. And that's probably the only way you can do it, to be honest, when the child and the adult is supervised. Because that's the only way that can be fixed. And you never let them out of their sight. Ever. Not one of them. They should both be in sight at one time, or one at a time in sight. That's just one of the solutions to this problem. But again, politics plays a role into that, because they don't want to fund the carer costs here, not to fund to train carers. And so you always have these issues. Like, good fucking job. Thanks, Trump. And to be honest, thanks, Joe Biden, because I think he was probably around 2020, wasn't he? I could be wrong. Maybe just started, but I don't know. Yeah. Again, the stigma of this stuff, it obviously doesn't mean anything good. There's plenty of autistic people who've done awful things and are awful. In fact, Elon Musk apparently is autistic, which is cringe, because nobody wants to associate with him, and nobody in the autistic community actually likes him. But that obviously doesn't give any of us a good name, because for some reason people want to platform a person who's not empathetic towards anyone, whereas many autistic people are actually empathetic. The media often writes smear pieces about autism, and what do you know, next it'll probably be about cerebral palsy. So it's just absolute fucking insanity. They want their sort of masterclass, or I don't know what you call it, like able supremacy, but they just want the most able-bodied people in the line of work and whatever it is, slavery. They want to get rid of everyone, and also billionaires universally agree, by the way, not sure if people know this, but they universally agree that autistic people aren't good for work. They're too risky and too costly, too smart as well, and that's why they don't hire autistic people. But also that's like another weird thing, somehow that ties to Trump, Reform, Restore, at the moment Labour and Conservatives, and how they are advocating for the billionaire class and obviously ruining things. I hate how this becomes political, but it does, just by virtue of the reality we're in, where everything is funded by billionaires because of, well, governments are funded by billionaires, I mean, because of greed. That's all it is. There doesn't seem to be any other reason other than maybe it's actually treating this like a societal cockfight, where illegal and legal stuff happen all the time for violent means, and yeah, it's just a disaster. They just play things, and that's it. But, that's not going to help schizophrenic people either. So what do I know? Again, people need to understand this is complicated. If you fail to understand that, it's your problem. You'll be a cynical arsehole your entire life, and you'll also be angry. And that's, again, not my issue. try my best to convince you otherwise, but it's kind of up to you if you accept it. So yeah, that's my thoughts on this, like, real crime situation. Yeah, it's just sad. Anyway, let's move on. So when thinking and talking about the tipping point for corruption, I think about how bad of an impact it can have, and just the general areas where it has an impact. And obviously, as we've seen with the current climate, the corruption of billionaires and ultra wealthy, it's just absurd. It's just an unaccounted, I don't know what to even call it, unfathomable number of just bullshit, because they just want to be wealthy. And obviously that tipping point is having an effect on the average person, which I just find insane. And I think even then, they're normal people, although there's still obviously lots of people out there who'd like to have that wealth, but still normal people who would look at that and say they don't actually want all that wealth, and it's justified to not have all that wealth. They actually support the idea. So it is just absolutely absurd to just see the amount of corruption that people have. And in terms of political, societal impact, it is pretty damn bad. It's probably some of the worst we could see, up there with like Israel, who are the worst for this, because their corruption scales are essentially off the charts. They kill opponents, they want to create war, they want to, I think, rob people blind in their own country, remove rights. There's so many things that go wrong. And on top of that, there is also a case where, well, I think like Trump as well has some involvement here, as well as becoming almost like Israel. Except if he became like Israel, it's finally like, it's going to be some of the worst corruption we've ever seen in history. It's almost like Nazi Germany, but worse, in my opinion anyway. So we'll see things that are just horrific. And yeah, that level of corruption just is insane. And so we can't obviously let that happen. And rating the corruption we see from the UK with like Keir Starmer, it's somewhat above normal, above average, if there's even a thing for corruption. But it's not above that, and it's obvious that he's been bought. It's obvious that he doesn't care about human rights, and it's obvious that he doesn't care about solving these political issues where there's been violence and incited riots and stuff. So that means that the issue here is that Keir Starmer is a danger to society and politics. And this has become a bigger thing the more it goes on. And the same with Nigel Farage and Rupert Lowe and the Conservatives. I forgot who runs that, Kimmy Banaduk. I can't remember now. But the corruption on their level is just insanely high. Because they're mainly bought for by billionaires. They plan to work for the ultra wealthy, and they don't even know what to do when they're in power. In fact, none of them actually showed any leadership skills, which is fucking insane. And it just makes me think how much danger we're in, and then look at even those on the left. Like, admittedly, I need to look this up actually, because I might actually know so, but the Dems political leader, let's go there. I know your party, like Jeremy Corbyn's, probably a low level of corruption, but there's still some. Apparently he's not been very good at directing that party and arguing stuff. But yeah, that's an issue. Leader, Liberal Democrats, Ed Davey, yes, I have heard of him. So it's just interesting. What was he? Is he like the MP of somewhere? No. But you know, even though I don't really know anything about him, there's still a chance of corruption, regardless. And that's because we don't really know what they can be corrupted by. If it's money, then obviously they will be corrupted by money. But it could be other things. It could be favours. It could be something else. You never know. It could even be just like assassination. Even something stupid like give me a prostitute with extremely big labia, for example. And that would be like a level of corruption, because people will now need to find a fucking prostitute with a massive labia. And it's just become problematic. So yeah. It's just kind of insane. And then you look at like Zach Balansky, for example, still an extremely low chance of corruption. Because with all the policies, with all the rules that are out there, and everything that he's just basically talked about, it's literally like so, I don't know what to call it, I'm getting distracted again. It's like so low that if it were to happen, it would be obviously extremely detrimental, possibly worse than others. Again, there's not really any signs of corruption. He's doing all the right things. Yet people try to take issue with this, somehow. You're not even weighing the scales here. And you're taking issue with someone based on that. It's a bit like saying, oh, I think these weigh 1 kilogram, when in reality it weighs about 200 grams and you're just fucking weak. You're weak and skinny. And it's just a really deceiving way of looking at it. So you're already thinking the worst about someone without weighing it up, even with the possibility. So again, it's just insane. Obviously I need to go to myself in terms of that level of corruption, and obviously whilst I can't go into details about it, I'll look at the aspects where it's affecting things. Societal aspects, very low. Political aspects, somewhat low, but more risky for obviously the type of politics involved in it. And I think that's generally a good thing, because I'm not even asking for like shit tons of money. It's just a lifestyle change and a change of scenery. That's essentially all I'm asking for. And it's not even something big. I'm not giving up morals unless asked to, although I wouldn't push anything. That'd be an agreement I'd have to make. I'd have to be neutral. But I'm not even going to push like a bad lifestyle or anything. And that's where it's just going to go. Basically turning my situation upside down whilst leaving the good parts in. And I think that's sort of as high as I've got in terms of corruption. So it's not even hard to fucking buy me off by that, by any means. It's just, it might take a bit of work and that's it. You know, something as simple as that. And even like a shit ton of money doesn't really tempt me. So again, weighing those aspects, it's like maybe I'm a little above, again, like the Green Party or Lib Dems here, but still somewhat lower than everyone else. Like so many other aspects I haven't even brought up, like domestic, like I'm trying to think, like family, I don't know, like obviously it's domestic as well. But like, even leisurely, like, because it affects like leisurely stuff as well. So with corruption, obviously they'll start to remove social media and stuff, which they're apparently already doing with the under-16s in the UK. Speaking of which, I need to check. But you know, it's so fucking absurd. It's just a crazy situation, and I think with corruption we do need to be careful. I think we need to know the warning signs. We need to know where people are wrong, obviously right if they are. We need to catch it before it becomes more of an issue. So yeah, I don't know what else to say. That's basically about it. So let's move on. Kabaneri of the Iron Fortress. what the fuck is this series anyway? I'm a little confused, I gotta admit. But it's just a very kind of average anime in my opinion. And I sort of have to go into spoiler territories here because there are some things that just make me sort of question everything going on in this, and again it feels like no different. But I'm just kind of confused about everything in this, and it's just I think it can be seen as good and seen as bad in some ways, but it's not terrible or great. Just the weird thing with this, the weird twist. So, I'm trying to think, I'm trying to cancel my Crunchyroll because I can't tell the 1st of July, that's not bad. I'm planning on just watching some actual other shows also. I need to research them. But I forgot to do it. Just fucking annoying. I need to do some of that at some point. I'm sure I'll put a real good up then. But yeah, where do I start? Animation. I thought it was decent. It's nothing special in my opinion. I didn't find anything about it that was too noteworthy. I just think it's really hit or miss, and you know, just one of those things. Especially for like 2016, it's kind of surprising that it isn't as good as it can be. And admittedly, I'm not a good animator myself. The point is, I just don't find there was much to praise it. Just a shame. Except for the... what do you know it? Just that. No. The background art. I think the background art was definitely nice. It's really different in areas, and it's just in like colour usage in areas. It's actually kind of nuts what it did in some of these areas. But I just found it kind of interesting in that area, and I don't know. It's just one of those things. I like backgrounds, I like landscapes, and it didn't disappoint. I have to say it outright. Just objectively didn't disappoint. So yeah, that was one of the interesting aspects of this. What else was I guess like to speak of arts, the voice acting. I think the voice acting was decent. I didn't think it was anything special either. Again, it's just average. I didn't really find anything too different about it. But that's all ties into that character cast, obviously. Somewhat important to have good characters in shows like this. And it had decent characters. It's not surprising, to be honest, for an anime. And the characters are kind of recognisable and interesting in their own ways. Some weird twists here and there. Speaking of twists, the story. I think the story was just okay, it was decent, but it had nothing special going on. And I think that was partly due to just the idea of the story in itself. It's sort of post-apocalyptic, and then as it goes on, it gets more interesting. That's what I expected with this, and that turned out to be true, because I was almost thinking of quitting. Because it wasn't bad, but it wasn't too interesting. I was just thinking maybe I'd be better off watching something else. And maybe I would have, but I stuck through, and it kind of rewarded you for that. Rewarded me. It kind of rewards you. I don't know what I'm saying now. God, am I high? Don't know what's that. But I think that it's certainly an anime in terms of story. Has those elements to it, but it isn't like wacky or like laugh out loud funny or anything. It certainly has humour, but it doesn't do too much of it. And same with the action, same with these story points. There just isn't too much of anything in this, which I think can be to its benefit and to its detriment too. I just find it just averaged again. It's a shame to say because Some animes are really good, but this one just felt average. I'm actually surprised it had such a high rating as well. I'm genuinely surprised. But it wasn't fan servicey either, at least too fan servicey. I've got to give it credit when it's due. Forgot to mention that completely. The lack of fan service definitely helped it. So, yeah, also that fan service being like boobs and just girls being girls. It seems like there seems to be that trend in anime, which is kind of, you know, I'm sure it's a bit questionable in areas. I certainly don't dislike what I see in there. What else is there? I'm trying to think. It's hard to think when I'm so distracted with everything in life at the moment and sort of tired. I've got decent sleep. I guess I'll go into like more spoilery territory things here, because there are some things here to point out which I thought were definitely warranted. So obviously it's called like Kabaneri because of the sort of nature of the Kabaneri being the zombies in this. Yes, zombies pretty much. Going to be killed by shooting the hearts. The anime, I will say, does have good attention to detail with this and stuff. Different stuff as well. And that is to its benefit too. So obviously worth praising, hence me mentioning it. But it doesn't do much else. And I've written down a few notes here. So I think the thing with the company that sort of confused me, unless I missed it, is that it didn't explain the origins of them. Because it's just known that it's a virus, and obviously the main character, Ikoma, manages to prevent being infected and becomes a Kabaneri as a result, but also carries this like crystal pebble thing, whatever that's about. I'm not 100% sure what it's about. I was a bit confused about that too, and of course because of that he's fine. He's main character energy and he becomes a main character. He's basically a Kabaneri that hasn't been turned and still basically retains human elements. Which I think is an okay twist. It's certainly like different, but it's also not new, I don't think. I'm pretty sure we've had that before. I just can't remember what that was in. Basically a good zombie, I guess. That's probably what it's considered. So yeah, that was a thing. But I don't know exactly what the origins were. So wherever the Kabaneri came from, where Patient Zero was or anything, just was not explained. So I'm sort of confused by that. I'm trying to think if there was anything other than like a science experiment, but I'm not sure if that was to prevent it or what. So I was also a bit confused by that area when it's going into that. There seemed to have been a science experiment, and they seem to be experimenting with reversing the Kabaneri blood with like white blood or something, and that was the entire goal of the series as well. But for some reason it had no goal, and this is also one of the big points about the story which I sort of disliked. And I should have to write that down. I'm sure there was no goal in the story, so I'll write that down. It's just more like exploring the world and leaving it open-ended, but also it feels very video gamey. That's one of the things I realised. It is ripe for a video game. I'll be surprised if it hasn't had one yet. But it is seriously ripe for one, because every single fucking element plays into that. You've got a swordsman, you've got a gunman, someone who goes at point blank, you've got boss enemies, you've got like mini boss enemies, I guess. It's literally coded for a game, just based on the various elements, which I find so bizarre as well. So I'm not exactly sure how to feel about that. It's certainly a thing, give it that. So yeah, I'm not exactly sure what to say on that. Is it to its detriment? I guess a bit. Anyway, there's another thing that I wrote down, The music choice can be a little strange, having like dubstep and dance for some reason, even though it's fantasy. And it's also called dark fantasy, but it doesn't explore those elements until later. Weirdly enough, it's kind of implied, but it doesn't until later. And you know, I initially thought this was like an anime from the 2000s, given the style and the, also the feel of it. Turns out not, which caught me off guard for sure. Definitely gonna be like, for some reason, Evangelion vibes, but not really. Don't know why. Yeah, that was bizarre. So music choice could be a bit better. And what's this? Oh yeah, the way the anime is posed, for some reason, it's also very hard to find because it's not on Crunchyroll and it's not on Netflix either. Apparently, even though it says it is, so I'm not sure what's going on there. Just again, another excuse to find it elsewhere. Like, fuck's sake, it's so dumb. This is what I mean with subscriptions being terrible. Because they're just so not ready yet. They don't have everything figured out. So everyone's getting punished for it because they can't find things. But when I don't find it, watched it, it's kind of meh. But for some reason they had a second introduction for Mume, which I'm very confused about. So that was weird. Not sure why they even bothered to have that, because that just seems very out of place to me. Just very strange. It has to be said. What else? I think that's it. I've got all the notes done. I guess that leads on to the recommendation, or maybe lack thereof here. I think it's kind of hard to recommend, as much as it will get a spotlight in the things of 2026. It doesn't do anything that makes it out of this world good. You know, I watched One Punch Man before this, and I was kind of like, yeah, I liked the One Punch Man season 3, even though it had issues, for sure. I still enjoyed it regardless. But, you know, I find sometimes anime doesn't do anything special. And this is one of those animes. It has a gimmick, for sure. It admittedly has a very deep narrative. I forgot to mention that. It has deep narratives here and there. But it still isn't that good. I have to be honest here. Nothing about it sparked any sort of, oh, yeah, I really need to think about this, or really need to assess this in some way. It just felt kind of empty in a way, which is also kind of sad because I think it should have done better. And it's also no wonder I don't hear about it, because it literally did nothing special. That's really what the review comes down to here. Again, just nothing special. But it isn't even like an insult. So, recommendation, not really. I think no matter what, you might find some things a bit kind of meh or not interesting. I think it really depends. I think if you're extremely bored, give it a shot. If you're not bored, then just skip it. That's my best advice for a recommendation here. And there's not really any ways to recommend watching it unless maybe you're on drugs. God, that might be a trip. But I don't know. It's all hard to say. So I can't really recommend it properly. Just with caveats, I suppose. And it just have to be like that, I think, unfortunately. Wish it could have been better though, I have to say. Although, I have to say, like, Ikoma is kind of hot. Maybe that's weird, maybe it's not. But even with the haircut, it's kind of like, oh my god. Yes. I don't know why. It's just hot. But anyway, that's about that. So let's move on. So, to no surprise, I sort of predicted this back when Slopsmith has a official takedown notice, DMCA takedown. Also, DMCA sucks. Weirdly enough, I'm just about watching a a thing about this from Lewis Rossman, and I recommend you check it out because it's quite eye-opening the way that they did it. And basically, they tricked another country into adopting it. Basically, the summary of this DMCA, even though it was considered detrimental, and managed to persuade other countries to take suit with the same thing, the DMCA, but only because another country did it, and so it's like a race to be on top, essentially. And that's how it basically took place. I haven't seen the rest, to be fair, so I'm not sure what else it could be. But it's extremely concerning. Because the MCA notice seems to show some very concerning signs of where it could have gone wrong, but also at the same time it's kind of like I saw it coming just based on some of the things I saw in Slopsmith, and I'm not sure if I said my concerns. I think I did, if I'm not mistaken. But it's fucking insane. So it says, "Hi John, I got to do on behalf of GitHub because we received a DMCA takedown notice regarding the following content: Slopsmith, desktop. I can't say anything. Desktop. We're giving you 1 business day to make the changes identified in the following notice." 1 business day? Are you fucking kidding me? Why? That's way too short. GitHub's and disk attachments. Yeah. If you need to be specific content from your repository, simply making the repository private or deleting it via commit won't resolve the alleged infringement. Instead, you must follow these instructions too if you think it's time sensitive. So there's another thing here. Once you've made changes, please reply to this message. If you don't tell us you made changes in 1 business day, we need to disable your entire repository according to our GitHub DMC takedown policy. If you believe your content in GitHub was mistakenly disabled by a DMC takedown request, you have the right to contest takedown by submitting a counter notice as described in our DMCA thing. Yes, that's real shit, and they released the RTF file, but apparently it was like a bunch of things referenced here where other people are targeted in this as well. So I think there's like, I don't know what it says. It says, "Are you the authorised copyright owner on the copyright owner's behalf?" It seems almost unprofessional. I don't know if this is actually the thingy for this. Like, I'm confused about what this document is exactly. But it says here something interesting which I saw on the Chainbrain video on this. The Slopsmith project is designed to operate against users' installation of Rocksmith 2014. The following statements from the Slopsmith project server files confirm this. The README line 65 states verbatim and supports both custom sample and official packs. Another bit of the README automatically converts binary note files SNG to XML similar to via the built-in note compiler. Okay, now that seems weird to me, because I'm pretty sure Guitar Hero uses XML. I'm not too like code savvy or anything. I haven't really developed games, but with my experience of making custom DLCs for Rocksmith 2014, the thing with that is it uses XMLs for the files, so the guitar parts, if I'm not mistaken. So this doesn't make sense. It's not copying Ubisoft, it's copying an age-old thing. So if anything, Ubisoft have just fucked themselves here, because now they're open to the Guitar Hero devs, or whoever made it, basically, the developers, publisher, to suing them for literally admitting that they use XML, which is a file format that Guitar Hero uses. So that just seems really fucking stupid. Good job, idiots. So yeah, it's not Slopsmith's fault here. It's a fucking tongue twister for some reason. But it's more. The default DLC path is in Docker Compress by line. It's a Steam apps, so basically it's in the same sort of file directory as Rocksmith 2014, which, yeah, but that isn't infringing on anything, so I don't understand this claim. again, I'm not some legal person or even code person. So this doesn't make sense. Also, I missed something, I think. Hang on. The README instructs the system to copy PSOC files. When was I reading this? That's weird. Also, I need to center this. I can't read it. If I centered. Default DLC path allows it. But they mentioned the PSOC, and the PSOC file is... It's always been a thing for Rocksmith 2014, and they never really contested the fact through customs order or anything. Like, it's weird. They never took issue with the customs forge type where they actually had PSOC files everywhere, and even the M version of them, of the other platforms really. So it's a bit confusing. So I don't understand that. That claim's a bit stupid as well. Local shares, Steam apps, which is the installation, already seen that. The README sort of like pretty noisy, advertises the bundle-based game extractor as extracted on disk game songs from the song's PSOC into individual song files. Not sure what that means. That's just like the Rocksmith 2012, is it? I don't know. Small disk extractor, the PSOCs, Rocksmith 1 compatibility. That's what I should call it, Rocksmith 1, I keep forgetting it's called that. The next thing between the time and the initial audit and the submission date notice, Slopsmith has been edited to direct references of Rocksmith 2014, replacing official Rocksmith DLC with official song packs, and CDLC with custom songs. README at the head of the discloses the underlying product as quoted above. So they're accusing them of using things to obstruct the naming scheme. During the time of the initial audit and submission there, there's notice the README has been edited to direct references, but it's not direct references. Officials, with DLC, official song packs, CDLC, custom songs. So they're saying it's been replaced with that, but that's what it is. That's what you call it. Well, what the fuck? It's just such a strange claim. They don't have any sort of leniency, I don't know what to call it. Anyway, next thing. Specific Ubisoft owned files that the Slopsmith project targets include songs, PSOC, also one capacity PSOC. Each of these components of 2014 is commercially distributed by Thingy. Yeah, a bit weird as well, I'm not sure about that. The original work is available online, provided URL. URLs provided. I keep forgetting the asterisks are speaking, but yeah, I'm not exactly sure what these claims are exactly, if it is actually just them providing you with those answers. The entire repository is infringing on, based on the command of that, entire is infringing on, that's why the full repository infringing on Slopsmith, Slopsmith Desktop, Rocksmith 2014 net. That makes sense. Slopsmith. So it's not even 100% true. There's only one thing here with a warranted claim, but nothing else. So that's a bit stupid. If any technological measures in place to control access to copyright content, VC doc, whatever that is, anti-circumvention technology. Sure what that is. Technological. Oh god, it's just a bunch of crap in here. It seems like there are maybe things referencing the note chart here, just based on a quick skim read. Something about scanning it as well. So it's just like a note chart encryption, profile encryption, not sure about that. Statutory basis. Oh, is this about... I think Jane Brain mentioned this, but it's about the fork repositories and how there are contributors, so yeah, it's a bit weird. So there's a bunch of contributors to this, which is interesting, but yeah, they just listed a bunch of users who contribute, which is fucking weird. Even though they're not even directly involved in the game. They haven't developed it. They're just adding things to it. It's very weird. So I don't understand how they even come into this without a legal purpose. It's a rude sort of folks who are infringing on the same extent as the parent repository. Is this work license not open source? No. So there hasn't been an answer to that, which is interesting. So I found that weird. What would be the best solution for the alleged infringement? Reported content must be removed. Do you have the alleged contact information? Get associates. Is it private owners? Yeah, so it privated a bunch of names and stuff. It's also fucking creepy when the lawyers pull up the names of people. I just find that weird. It's better a lawyer than obviously someone else, but it's still creepy as fuck. No additional identification beyond these GitHub usernames unknown to Ubisoft at the time. Wait a minute, independent target, Slopsmith. What's he? I don't know. Also it's like Slop Hack Manager, Update Manager. I've got 5 of these copyright materials restricted above. I'm not infringing on copyright rights agent or law. So yeah, just a bunch of weird fucking shit. Really, and a bunch of bullshit for that matter. A lot of this just isn't founded. There aren't good reasons for it. And I looked at the subreddit as well briefly to see the comments. It's just like this sort of kind of product shouldn't be made under US jurisdiction. In France, reverse engineering is protected to interoperability. So the arguments they used, DMCA won't work. Yeah, true. That's bad. Update. I've been made aware that devs posted about this on the Discord, and I'll make a change to comply. Basically, getting rid of the SG decoder, so the game won't be able to use official tracks anymore. That's fair. Yeah, I'm gonna admit. Even though the official tracks, and I have to say this as well, from somebody who played 2014 and bits of the Slopsmith 1 tracks, although the ones that they imported because they didn't do everything. Basically, they were good tracks, they were really fucking good. There were some issues with some aspects of the game. I've seen criticisms of like DLC official ones and official tracks, but for the most part it was good. There wasn't really much to complain about. So I don't really know, but still you could still use an unofficial tab, which is fine I guess. But I think people are still going to reverse engineer it anyway. There'll still be people who literally take this shit and repurpose it all. Basically doing the same thing, but without being tied to, Slopsmith. I forgot where I was, but this is the thing I have to mention with this, and this is why I fucking hate legal teams. Because they're just ruining everything for everyone. Anything good. It's the problem with a post-capitalist future, which we're in now. And that is how everything becomes completely corporate and just absolutely insane in the worst ways possible. Like, what the fuck? Just doesn't make sense. I cannot wrap my head around that. But also it's just damaging to your reputation, because even if you already have like a sort of damaged reputation in that sense, it's not going to do any favours for you, because in reality what you're doing is fucking yourself through the means of trying to be a monopoly, and being a monopoly is a terrible thing. You're not doing yourself any favours. Being a monopoly means you're taking money away from others, so there's no competition, and then you get away with doing whatever it is you want. And people get bored of it, and then they lose. Well, they just don't bother with you anymore, because you make crap, and nobody wants to play crap. It's just bad news all around for this sort of shit. So I cannot genuinely comprehend what the logic is here. Why they even want to go to this route. It just genuinely makes no sense. I don't really know what else to add here, exactly. To that specific topic anyway. Again, it's like a bad sort of name for yourself as well. You become the company, much like Nintendo is, that attacks user-based, or rather user-created content for no other reason than greed. So again, just absolute ridiculousness. There's no reason for this, and yet they seem to think there is. But let's look at the facts here as well. Because aside from it being competition based, you also have what are inherently inferior products. Yes, even Rocksmith 2014 is among that. So the problem with the Rocksmith games is they do not offer a solution to the issues that plagued it. As in, even with what could be possible modifications, it is still not good enough. So what you end up seeing is a game where everything is inferior and players are getting tired of it because it being inferior is bad news. It means that it's not going to be fun. It means that it's not going to be something that you enjoy. And people will want to try and change that. They want to make it the way they want it to be played, the way that it should be played as well. So when Rocksmith 2014, for example, never had a update to include extra strings, someone's going to want to add extra strings. And believe it or not, that's more in line with the modern era than anything else. Like, come on, why wouldn't you want an extra string? 7 strings are pretty much standard these days. In fact, I think even rock musicians adapt to 7 strings too. Like non-metalheads do. And that's why it's just so fucking ridiculous. Because nobody wants to deal with that shit. To deal with a lack of a string. When they want to learn from these extra strings. So of course an inferior product is not going to appeal to them. Which is why they'll modify it. The same with Plus. Everything here pretty much applies to Rocksmith Plus as well. So that also creates controversy for sure. But you may want the game to be multi-scale supportive, you may want it to have lyrics or maybe like a vocal mode, like Slopsmith had. But you also may want it to have more than that, so you want it to have drums, so you can actually learn drums. You want it to have keyboard, which Rocksmith Plus has, to be fair, but as far as I know, it's not as easy to learn as you think. I do want to play piano at some point, or keyboard. I'm not sure how viable it is exactly. Just one of those things, I think. Just wait and see, I suppose. Yeah, literally, it's just such a shitty situation as it currently stands with all this stuff. For so many of the inferior things, because it's also the fact there's the lack of a song selection for both 2014 and Plus, especially Plus, because I just recently reported on that. People don't like it because it is inferior. There is not enough songs that people want to play. You fucked yourself, good job. I can do that too, but we don't talk about that. But that's what you do, you just shoot yourself in the foot. You pick songs that are unpopular. You also do stupid licensing agreements with them, which, to be honest, nobody cares about. You don't really need to do it, in reality. But the licensing agreements just turn out to be just a lot of legal mumbo jumbo, essentially. And nobody wants anything to do with it because it means that the songs get removed. It's just ridiculousness on a whole nother level. And that's why things like this become a justification for piracy. The same way that Rocksmith 2014 tracks are being removed, and if you even take issue with that, there's going to be a big backlash. Because people are fed up of not owning the things that they buy. And even then, for the things they want to buy, not being there, what do you fucking expect? You can't even trade these as like a collector's item, so what are you doing if you even do a takedown notice for these fucking tracks that were previously in the game? Genuinely makes no sense. So again, that's another reason why it's an inferior product. Or all this, really. Like, what the fuck are you doing? So I'm trying to think what else there is. I remember there is something else, but I can't remember what it is exactly. But it is like a real problem, to be honest. I wish I could remember. Maybe, actually, yeah, that may be it. So a lack of ways to actually play and personalise things as well. What Slopsmith got done really well is the way that you can personalise it to your liking. So I think you can even adjust the interface in a way, but you can also adjust, obviously, the thing you use, so you can use your own audio interface, which Slopsmith can do, but I think it's a bit harder to set up. But you can also use your own apps. You can use VSTs, and that is honestly something that Rocksmith doesn't have, which is good. So in a sense, it's like these step up. So instead of like a Rocksmith game, you're getting the one up, like I don't know what you call it. So you go for like beginner guitarist to intermediate, and then intermediate to advanced, and then maybe advanced to pro or something. But that's just how it goes. I don't really know the easy solution here exactly, but again, these inferior things here, as much as it's like a good product, is inferior compared to Slopsmith. Slopsmith offered so much on top of other things. I believe there's even like note by note detection, which is honestly such a big thing, because note by note means it can be learned through paying every individual note. So maybe you're learning like Judas Priest Breaking the Law for the first time, which is one of the easiest tracks you can learn as a beginner. It's also fun. And you can play that note by note, but as a beginner it's going to be difficult. So you learn what notes to hit first, so you position and stuff, and you get used to it. It's very simple. And that even applies to like chord shapes as well, I believe. So it's a very real possibility to do a lot of this stuff, and it doesn't matter. You can't disregard that fact. So yeah, that is important. What else is there? I'm trying to think here, but I can't scratch my brain about what other things there are. Oh yeah, I suppose it's like the next thing. You shouldn't be looking at something like this as a threat to take away money from you. You should be looking at it as a learning experience. Because even though they are using the Rocksmith stuff, which I totally understand, but also don't understand in some ways, because some games do use the same things. Like, as I said, the XML files doesn't make sense, because I'm pretty sure most games use that. But I just don't get why you look at this and think, oh yeah, this is a threat, I'm going to send my legal team after you and find everything possible, like any excuse, and then they can't find anything. That's just weak, and this is why Ubisoft is apparently dying. It doesn't surprise me. But you can't look at it and say that's the thing to do. You should look at it and think, okay, how can I make our game better? How can I make these games better? And that's what you should be doing instead. Literally. It's just frankly fucking absurd to not look at it and use it as a learning experience. As a multi-billion-dollar developer. Seriously, it's so fucking stupid. And I think anyone who's like supported this should be ashamed of themselves. Supported the takedown. It's just so dumb. But yeah. it's also just a hit to reputation too. Let's say it for what it is. It is a hit to reputation, regardless of how you paint it. That's also a danger to revenue, no doubt. And this also will be a danger to revenue because now people know it's there and you've done like a big controversy, a big drama, because negative press is good press for this. Now people will do everything they can to do that. It's the same way that the DMCA was invalidated, as Lewis Rossman puts it, because you all have physical copies of DMCA, like DMCA content, rather. So it already exists. You already have a pirated version of whatever it is you're doing. If you watched a video recently, apparently it's on your PC. And that's even like a thing at the moment where you can actually go back and find old videos, which is fucking nuts. Just because it's downloaded to your PC, like temp file thing. So again, it's just ridiculous. And on top of that, if you can't find something and you can't own it, then that justifies downloading. Like, are you fucking joking me? The DMCA is such a fucking piss take of what could be good humanity, whatever good humanity is. I think it's just acts of kindness, acts of good, acts of teaching and education and purpose. It's not an act for making revenue, it's just being rational. With humanity, obviously, I think it's important that we obviously keep track of everything, that we record everything we can to make it become something more than it is, I guess. Like, make sure it's immortal in a way. I think that's especially important. Making things as immortal as they can be is a big deal. It's not always going to be possible to do it, but you can sure as hell try. That's why people liked Rocksmith and thought we should make something better. So they came together to obviously make this and contribute to it, to make an improvement over what is a good game fundamentally, but flawed by the lack of features, the lack of other support. And that's why that happens. Sort of sidetracking a bit, I'm losing topic a bit. So I might end this soon. I'll think about it. But yeah, I can only hope that the developers obviously come back and obviously remove the quote-unquote infringing content, even though it's not infringing. And obviously come back stronger, and they've renamed it, I remember. I think they called it Feedback or something. I could be wrong about that. They called it something clever, which I thought it was good for. But yeah, I don't know what else to add, but that's essentially it for this topic. I'm curious if there's anything I am missing though, so obviously feel free to comment, but I'm not convinced, so let's move on. I'm quite curious again about whether there's any news for GTA 6, because I'm not interested in the game, but I'm always interested to hear the news around it, and because of how hyped it is, it seems it's kind of like, it's weird, because so many people are just on board with it. It's obviously become its own meme and stuff. Obviously it looks insane based on the trailer, but there are elements of it where I know to keep myself reserved, and especially with something like Cyberpunk, for example, even though I'm not the same developer, I know that. But Cyberpunk taught us that no matter how long in development it is, it can still be a massive disappointment. And that's what I have a feeling is going on with this, and also with all the Rockstar employee stuff that was happening. For, I can't remember what it was it layoffs or was it something else? I can't remember what it was, something union actually, wasn't it? It was unions. It made me realise that things can just get more delayed with this game. It's literally possible for that to happen. And that seems like what's going to happen. And apparently it did get delayed again, apparently, according to insider information, or whatever that is, delayed from 19th of November to, strangely enough, February 2027. Just the same date as Metro 2039, which some people are hyped for. It's a weird game, that is, that series. I'm not exactly sure about it. It's not my sort of thing. I don't really like the grungy feel of games. I like bright and vibrant and happy most of the time, except if it's Witcher, which I got into for good reasons, bad. But it was also vibrant in areas. But it's so weird because I saw one of the dumbest comments on that, on one of the shorts reporting on the insider info. And it said they're literally killing the hype for the game. Like, what do you fucking expect? They're delaying it so that they can polish it. I think that's the most obvious thing here to take away from it. But they're not delaying it so that people become more hyped about it. They know it's fucking killing the game's reputation. But it's also ironic when people say the game's released too bad, too out of a state, and then this shit happens. You get random users on the internet saying, "Oh, it's bad that they keep delaying it. It's killing my hype for the game." We saw what happened with Cyberpunk when they didn't delay it. It came out as intended, and it ended up being utter shite. And even after many updates, it still wasn't reached its peak, I don't think. It could have been its potential peak, and let alone added the things it said it was going to have. So again, it's important to keep your hype in check when it comes to this stuff. I think that is important to take note of. Because I think the amount of hype the game has is frankly absurd. I think it's unnecessary too. A game like this, of this scale, doesn't really need that much, to be honest. That's because it can also be a big disappointment. But there's now more pressure on developers because they know if they fuck this up, they are in real danger. And I'm not even saying that as if it's like a thing where, someone's just got to call a bomb to the office. I'm literally saying they are just in real danger because of community and what they'll do, whatever that involves. We're talking literal acts of terrorism, probably identity theft. There's so many ways this can go wrong. And if they fuck it up, and I think Rockstar knows about it because of obviously needing to take cover here and obviously stop any sort of collateral damage, they are aware of the big risk in this of releasing one of the biggest games of all time to a new and an old audience, and they have to not fuck it up. So even if it is in development hell at the moment, which it seems like it is, there's a very real possibility that delaying it is the best option for them. So when there is a controversy, there shouldn't really be any, actually. That's the main point. They're trying to avoid it. And that's why it's constantly being delayed, and we only got the news a few days ago, apparently, from the insider info, that it was being delayed. Right after all the game announcements, which all plan to release on November, which is fucking crazy. Just before November, actually. Wrong there. Just before or long after. So, it's obvious that there is trouble in the works of the game, for sure. But much like a select few people, I am not basically playing it day one. Seriously, fuck that. It's not worth it, especially as they're probably releasing on consoles first, which I find frankly baffling. Unless they're doing the PC port as well, which they should be, to be honest. But if they're doing it console first, then they're missing an opportunity. One of the biggest game released of all time, and it released on a console first. Yikes. That's all I can say to that. But, yeah. But they're not killing the hype for the game, it's people killing it for themselves. They looked at the trailer and thought, oh my god, I'm gonna jizz. They looked at the next one, oh my god, I'm gonna jizz again. And then they're trying to find the next opportunity to jizz, but they can't. Because guess what? It's a game, it's massive, it's still in development, end of story. And I wish Rockstar would come out with statements about it, explaining what's going on and giving updates, because I think that's important. That would certainly give people hope, give them a reason to be hyped, but there's no transparency here, so nothing's actually helping. Them delaying it is not helping the situation, and even then, I think an explanation can damage it too, because they're just not doing anything. They don't fucking explain anything here. It's just ridiculous. Sure what else to say, to be honest. Yeah, as I said, I'm not really looking forward to it, to be honest. So yeah, I shall move on. So I haven't really done an update in a while, but I think I can redo one now. Just a channel update, I guess, and what my plans are for the future. I haven't really laid anything out, which is a bit annoying, but it's just one of those things. I've been busy and struggling, sadly. Or positively, depends. I think there are a lot of people who would like that. Fair enough. I just wanted to give some updates. So, as for the channel, there aren't really any changes to be made. It's still doing my regular thing. Podcast's still going. It's quite a busy few months so far. There's so many things happening, it's just insane. So I've had to address that, and I've updated my music, so there's a bit of a better tone for the rhythms, there's a bit of a EQ change as well as new drums. If you haven't heard the Exponential Entropy metal cover yet, that's using the same drums that I'm going to use now, the Gent style drums. I didn't really bother to edit that much of it because it felt a bit unnecessary, although the only problem with it is for some reason the velocity doesn't adjust the volume or control of it or something. I'm a bit confused by that because it feels a bit kind of crappy now, but I've managed to fix most of it for the most part, which is good. So yeah, that's good news, I suppose? Question mark. And trying to think what else in terms of music. I just finished doing an original, which is actually surprisingly different. I'm actually genuinely surprised by it, but the original seems quite like a different sort of thing. Like, it's not my usual stuff, that's what I'm saying. Because where I'd usually do something like a metal cover or a metal cover with a twist, not metal cover, I mean just metal, duh, but metal with a twist. Instead I've just done an entirely different genre, but still got the same sort of darkness aspect that the metal tracks can have. And I think it's going to be really popular somehow. I genuinely think I've done something really different, on top of making it sound like a familiar band. I don't want to spoil who that is actually, because it is kind of impressive what I've done, and I'm surprised I can actually write vocals now. I don't understand how I've done that though so well. It's strange to me. It feels so unusual to have something that's competent in that sense. Obviously I'm still using synthesizer V. But yeah, in terms of music, we've also gone back to the standard HYPERSKY bass instead of fretless. Because the reason is, for some reason the fretless doesn't have slap, and I would have continued using it if it had slap bass, but it doesn't. So I guess I'm not using that, but I'm guessing it's because of the strings. I think they're flat wound, is it? I can't remember what the types are now. There's like flat wound and something else wound. And I reckon that might be why. Because maybe it's a bit more flat in that sense, so it's harder to do that unless you want to slice your finger. I'd want to. Yeah, there does seem to be a bit of annoyance there. nothing being solved, if that, I suppose. But I'm going back to the base, obviously. So I can just use the slap feature, because the slap feature is kind of useful, well, not feature, it's just a technique. Also, if people aren't aware, I use VSTs, and VSTs are the way I make music here, primarily. Whereas before, obviously, I sort of try and play, but it doesn't work. No matter how hard I try, it all falls apart. What will eventually will be a memory. Wait, that's a lyric. But yeah, it just doesn't work exactly. Playing is a near impossible task. I can't play that well, and I'd just rather use my skill of songwriting to do the talking here. As much as I'd like to use guitar for it, it just doesn't seem very viable overall, and it makes it harder to edit as well because I have to retime it again and try and get it right every time. And even when I've tried actual guitar before, people have commented how bad it sounds, and so I just don't know what to do. It's a bit disappointing to also see that sort of response to something I've put so much work into. That I made the effort of thinking it and making it work, making it fun and interesting, even changing the tones, and I still got shit for it. So yeah, but even then, after coming on this, after this next original track, which I call Roots of Evil, I've got something else interesting going, and it's very interesting because what's basically happening is I'm just getting really in the mood to write some more political tracks, but I don't want to make them around Trump because he's got like 2 tracks almost dedicated to him, although one's more towards the terrible state of corruption in the world. They're called that, although there's more Trump than anything else. But I think that this new track addresses a UK issue, and I'm actually really proud of what I've written so far because I visualise it in a certain British band's vocalist voice, and it sounds extremely good in my head. It would be a big missed opportunity to not make a song like this, at least once, as a fan of said band. So I think I'd have to make that. Not to mention the lyrics go extremely hard. I'm surprised by how well I've made it work, despite how sort of little there is to actually say on this topic. And it's even organised as well, which is a crazy thing. I'm usually terrible at organising lyrics and the meanings behind them. But here it's like I've done it properly and it just works. So it's kind of insane to me to see that. But I'm glad it works. Regardless, I think it's genuinely a good thing, from what I could tell. Trying to think, is there anything else to say or add here? Not coming to mind, but I think that the music is on its way. As for artwork, I've got something really exciting coming up, and then another exciting thing after that, but I'm going to have to look at sort of reducing the amount of output I make from it, because to be honest, I have too much work on my hands with artwork as it is, and I think lowering the scope from obviously 1 hour a day and obviously across a few weeks to something more manageable is really important, including in the background style, and I've experimented with that actually. For the first Cause Roots thing, I'm also writing a series, weirdly enough. Still working on it, still in progress. But for that, I'm needing to make artwork for it, to make it sort of interesting and to make it sort of readable and you can imagine the characters and stuff. I just think that there's tired. I think there's a good opportunity to make artwork in a simpler style. And I think even with the one I'm planning on making after the characters, it's probably something quite wholesome I will spoil that the artwork in progress at the moment, I'm still finishing up, is Final Fantasy XIV, and it's pretty funny. It's such a good idea that I just don't know how I didn't think of it before. Genuinely surprised me. It might surprise others as well. In fact, it might even become meme status. Like, you never know. It's not really a unique idea, but it's just fun, stupid fun, and it gives personality to what the game does to Lords instead not being in that artwork. Also, on top of that, I've got something that ties into music. I am making a mascot, or at least trying to. I'm not exactly 100% sure how it's going to work. I might have to work on the eyes a bit more, make something different. But the mascot is going to be kind of cute in a way. Not my usual sort of stuff, where I make chibi characters, although it's kind of chibi in a way. This character has a neck as well. I've had that complaint before about my character drawings. Like, where's the neck? Why didn't you draw a neck? And the reason I didn't draw a neck is because you can't see them. You can't see them in chibi characters. As far as I know, adding the neck to a chibi character makes them look more like a giraffe. But in this case, it kind of works because the body matches. That's what you need. You need a body that matches it. I think the longer the arms of a character, the longer the neck needs to be. I think that's true, for the most part. So it does mean something, but I'm looking forward to also releasing that, the mascot, who I'm calling, who's actually named after a combination. I should mention that. Explain. Where's my fucking shit? Where the actual fuck is my shirt? That's weird. This falling. I'm actually really confused. Didn't mean to get distracted, but. Okay, there it is. It's hidden under the fucking cover. Fun fact and cool tip: I use a mattress sheet, one of those free ones, not the strip. Are they stretched? Not stretched, no. Not the fitted ones, I don't use that. But just a mattress sheet for summer. Because it helps when temperatures are not quite warm or cold, and you can actually keep it quite neutral. So I'll use it in winter as well, sometimes. Yeah, but the character is basically based on the names that I had for, obviously, the band I made, and I'm calling him Itsushi. Wait, no, Itsushi, that's it. It's like a combination of Shouldering Existence, which was the previous name, and I was thinking, what can I name the mascot? There's also kind of cool, but also kind of unique. And that's what came to mind, combining the two words in a way. And basically that's what it means, like existence, shouldering. And that's what it's kind of short for, although it's more backwards. So obviously it's shouldering existence, but it's Soshi. So I can't reveal that. That's artwork. What else? I think that's it for artwork actually. Again, I'm trying to find a new style, and I think I will use that for this character as well. This, Sophie. Outside of artwork, writing, still doing that. I've released the sharing thing for that somewhere. Probably Blue Sky, I can't remember. But yeah, it's quite interesting though. Still writing it and still having new ideas and stuff. Still finding new ways to write about the story and stuff. And also, I did include a new great joke, but I can't remember what episode that's in. Also introducing more characters and stuff, and yeah. I think there's a lot of potential in this series though. It being a fantasy with sci-fi elements, obviously with it. So yeah. I think that's very interesting. that's that for that, though. As for other things like music, I think that I've already talked about music. What the fuck am I talking about? Got an itchy ear. Oh no, the other thing. Video, that's it. Let's talk about. I'm still working on, well, usual stuff, funny moments, podcast, and the old review, wherever that is. I'm not going to make a new channel trailer, to be honest. I think the current one still describes me quite accurately. I'm also a little more unhinged now, if anyone hasn't noticed. I think that also leads to the next thing, actually. Let's go on to that, because there isn't anything else there. But I'm still struggling mentally in a way. I just have to come to terms with the fact that there's moments where I'm vulnerable, and that can cause or create issues, rather. And those vulnerable moments are quite horrific, in my opinion. They're not great for me. I just feel so fucking weak, and like I can't do anything. And it's honestly one of the worst feelings. Unbelievable feeling to have. I think that's kind of where that also creates issues. So yeah, like I'm trying to address it. I'm getting through my list of things. I've still got like 1, 2, 3, 4, like 4 big things to deal with my health, technically speaking. One of them not so much health. It's going to take some work, I think. Especially a dentist, because I obviously missed that because someone didn't decide to turn up or ask me if I was still going. Yeah, it's fucking ridiculous. That can happen. But I'm trying, obviously. But I think that's pretty much going to be under control now for the most part. At least I hope. Still planning to get out and stuff, get out and about in real life to sort of address that. I'm still using exercise equipment like a treadmill and dumbbells, although I'm planning on getting a lighter one so I can do workouts with that for a bit too. Because I do struggle with exercise. I forgot to say this on the train station thing. I mean the train talk on the podcast. UK trains are a bit dodgy unit, is what I called it. But I did about 6,500 steps that day, which is fucking insane. It's a crazy amount. I didn't expect to be walking that much either. It was pretty crazy. Even then, there wasn't too much walking, having said that, so it's weird in a way. The amount of walking we did was kind of nuts. And I felt exhausted when I got back. Even then, when I got to bed, it was like instant sleep and slept throughout, which is rare. And I still suffer with insomnia, even despite tons of exercise. But that day I didn't have any, even though I had 5 hours sleep last night, which is not great. Speaking of which, how many did I have last night? This day? 6 hours, okay. So it's still not great. I'm still trying to control that, to be honest. It's not fun at all. It still bothers me. It's still addressing like all my other health problems there. Some updates in real life, and also I guess what I'm planning to do as well with my money situation. I'm getting it under control now. Obviously paying bills properly and starting to look into what things to buy next as a priority, because I need to make a priority list. It's just some things that are more important than others, and that does matter. Also, I need to keep up what do you call it, safety net asset with this sort of thing. I need to be extra careful with the money, because you never know. I might need to pay for all the other things, which actually I need to talk about too. So that's under control, but sorry, I can't control that cough. I don't know where the fuck it comes from. Basically, I need to be careful with it, so just in case, if and when I do get a new bathroom, because it's confirmed that I will be able to get one, or well, new toilet with a bidet rather. Um, I'll just have to be cautious with it. I think I have to be careful with the money so I can actually pay for the things. In fact, I need to look at the measurements again. I did write this down somewhere, I believe, because I measured out my bathroom and tried to look for an ideal bath. So I was actually measuring myself, actually, in that. And somewhere I've probably written down something about the measurements between like the sink and the bath, and hopefully that would result in something. Yeah, that's sort of written out. Walls. Yep, yep. That's interesting though. You get 100 centimeters of free space for a bath. So 100 by legs, which I'd have to do minimum 70, so I'll do about 80 in a bath. So what 100 by 80 cm baths and heights as well are important. I think at the time like 50 centimeters. It's a bit on the higher side. At least my length max height 55, medium 43. So yeah, 50 centimeters perfect actually. So I think a bath like that, and obviously the price would vary, but it also needs to be a square bathtub if it isn't obvious. I definitely couldn't fit anything else in there. It has to be like a perfect bath, square bath rather, wherever I can find that. And yeah, it'd be important for my mental health and physical health as well, because I can also get the benefit of being more bathed than before. I don't really know how to describe it actually, but I'm not sure if many exist, because the problem is the standard bathtubs for some reason like 170 centimeters according to the range here, whatever that is. Or Wix actually is, but Wix, what the fuck is that? From Mountain, what the hell is this? But I've seen square baths somewhere and they look great, honestly. Basic would be nice, damn. Straight baths, I guess. Well, no, it wouldn't be straight baths, it would be something else, wouldn't it? Not want a freestanding, I just want a square bath. But this is obviously stuff to figure out eventually, so I don't know, but there is obviously something here. I've seen square baths and that's what I need, I think. I've seen them go for a decent amount of money. Not too much it seems, and even then, I could just pay on finance. I could pay in free even. And I think that's a very optimal decision. Honestly, I think that's the only way I can actually address this and make it work. It'd be so nice to have a bath that's for my needs specifically, and also it'd just be nice and comfortable. I don't really know what else to say on it. God, it'd be so fucking nice. I wouldn't even actually want like a modern bath. I want it white because I want to be able to see if it's dirty or not, and if there's bugs in it because it fucking bothers me. Actually, fun fact: the house I was in before this, for some reason, you get these like millipedes. Something is like a longer version of wood else, I think, and it came through the fucking plugs for some reason. No idea how, but it came through like the drainage and got stuck in there, which I can't figure out for the life of me. Like, what the fuck? It's just so unusual. So I'm always a bit freaked out by bugs, especially if they look like that. Jesus Christ, you wouldn't. You say you won't be? Oh. Okay. But yeah, this is just something to figure out. So I don't really have it. Also, I need to be careful with my bollocks with that. I keep forgetting that, like, the drain place needs to be in a good place. I don't know how bad it is if you get your ball stuck in the drainage. Gotta imagine it's a bit painful, possibly deadly. But that'd be a free vasectomy. It only cost you 2 balls. Yeah, I ain't got anything else to add, so I shall move on. This is a topic that came to mind to me today that I also think is really important because it sort of reminded me of just some of my own mistakes in arguments and just how effective a simple argument can be. Because we see so much discourse now around everything. It's unavoidable. Even people who are not into politics are aware that Trump is the reason why fuel prices are so high. And obviously there's like word of mouth and stuff. However, people just are not interested in politics, so I can 100% understand that. So when it comes to wanting to make an effective argument, I think one of the problems we find today is there's no critical thinking, and I've already discussed this before in quite a lot of detail. I think it's like episode 103, 102, or 104 actually. Yeah, I think it's 104. And I just find it's kind of insufferable to be in a world where people don't use critical thinking. And I say that as someone who only really learned it like a few years ago, and didn't realise I was actually using it before that. So I literally knew about it for quite a while. Obviously, I think people need to be aware that there are severe consequences to not understanding an argument, and I think it also goes in line with what people do, which is what I call the dominating. And the dominating is basically, sounds like a horror movie, and it is. It's where people make an argument against someone. So let's say, as a lot of in politics, like reform voters in the UK do, they say that Kabaneri is a fake, a traitor, a grifter, and that's all they say. But as someone who's into like research and stuff, or mainly internet research stuff, you know, someone who's done it for me, which is awesome really. But as someone who's into that sort of thing, I have to question the validity of that claim and what the source is. So it's sort of similar to how I see people arguing against reform, ironically enough. And to be honest, it's going to be restore as well, because there's similarities there. It's like when people say that Nigel Farage is a grifter, and obviously that Rupert Lowe is a grifter as well, and also probably a closet Muslim as well, given the laws he wants to implement. But it kind of goes to show that when people make these arguments against them saying they're just grifters, it doesn't do anything. It just does fucking nothing. So, I could say now that Trump is corrupt, for example, and to someone who's MAGA and who is against corruption, they'll see that and think, well, you ain't said anything. I believe in my Trump, and you're not going to change that for me. But where if you change that argument to be something more effective, where you actually say Trump is corrupt because he takes bribes from billionaires and tries to make himself exempt from taxes, and obviously corrupts and tries to gaslight over the American people. To a MAGA person, a simple, effective argument there, that's going to spark some thoughts in their head. It may not necessarily convince them, but it's effective enough, and it most likely will bury itself in their memory. So it's important to have this kind of style of communicating with people so that you can effectively stop what the fuck they're doing. Stop or overhaul an entire injustice. America could have been altered from injustice if people just used critical thinking and also made the effective arguments, the relevant effective arguments. But obviously, because there is not that, it hasn't actually worked, so you do have these issues here and there. This is exactly what I mean, this sort of stuff. You can't make an argument without actually justifying it, so when people say that Zach Polanski is a grifter or traitor or something, you need to explain the reasoning, because me reading that doesn't say anything. It doesn't refute any of the points I have in favour of Zach Polanski. It doesn't do anything effective. So it's just a useless argument, and it's almost better if you just shut up. But instead you're just actually fueling the entire following of Zach Polanski and everything he does. So it's really important to just not argue like I hate to say it, but an idiot. You have to argue like you understand. Like you can simplify things. And there was this sort of quote, I think, I believe it was Albert Einstein, years ago I heard this. Something I still sort of believe is relevant. But he said if you can't explain something simply, then you don't understand it. So I think that was the argument. It might have been actually the other way around. Like if you can't explain it simply, you've understood the argument, but I don't know. But it's somewhat true. So when you really think about it, that is sort of how it goes. A lot of the things I've been convinced by over time are simple arguments. That's also to do with research as well. Simple research. And it's not really complex. There isn't a complexity to that sort of line of thinking. The only thing you have to be careful of is obviously sourcing and see if it's like 100% correct or 99% really. So I don't think you can ever have 100%. That's what I mean with this. You need shit like this to make an effective argument, to make an effective impact on people and plant that seed in them. Because the seed, hang on, what the fuck is that? It's long ago outside. As the seed will grow, hopefully. So that becomes really important. So you need to understand. That fucking crash. Some stupid car stop, I think. I don't know what the fuck that was about. Strange how that happened, but you know, it's just follow right territory now, so everyone thinks they drive right. It's UK, so we drive on the left, technically speaking. Yeah, I don't know what else to add to this really. But I'm someone who cares about making an effective argument and making it work out so that people who are in the wrong can actually admit those things. It's like when I looked into the was it the Golden Quay, the Goldie Quay? No, that's a Final Fantasy location, isn't it? No, Golders Green, that was it. No, there's that Golders Green incident quite a few months ago, just before the local elections, which I thought was really inconvenient, especially for Zach Polanski, who was in the spotlight for this, seemingly. But Zach Polanski shared a post which was condemning the police for such a violent sort of way to take down the criminal. And this is the part where critical thinking is extremely important, because it will decide whether or not there is a valid argument here about what's being said, also what the original poster said, because for some reason, just because Zach Polanski reposted it, it made people lose their shit, even though he wasn't the one saying it. And I sort of get his argument from an empathetic standpoint. Again, with like sharing that, because there are a lot of violent police out there. That's the sad reality. It's not something unusual. It's pretty much known, and something like that does need to be addressed. But with regards to this, though, the thing shown in question was obviously the violent approach they took, where they, I think, kicked the criminal in the head after literally stabbing and trying to kill someone. And obviously it's not a good argument, because the guy's dangerous, and as much as we probably crave some blood here and there, it should be blood for a just cause, rather than well, for the sake of it, which a lot of people sadly are doing, which doesn't help things at all. But I looked into it, and it turns out that actually they did a good job of restraining the guy. So I think the argument the original poster and Zach Polanski made was obviously incorrect. It's not the right call to make, to criticise someone who just potentially saves some more lives. Like, it's ridiculous, literally. I think that's really important. I think you need to call that stuff out and make an effective argument, because when people are saying, oh, you remember that Colours Green thing Zach Polanski was involved in, it doesn't say anything about what he's done wrong. And again, it's likely to strengthen his position, because at the end of the day, if you're not able to make the argument, so much so that you can't be defeated, then Zach's just won in that situation. But as I've said, even as a Green Party supporter here, it's based on the evidence, not any particular reason or bias. Even then, I have criticisms about this, and I did sort of call them out on it at some point, I think. I made obviously some comments on this too. But yeah, I don't know what else to add here. Essentially, it's about effective arguing, and it's not a hard thing to do if you actually understand what you're talking about. But a lot of people do not understand, so their arguments don't work. And they will never work, from what I'm aware of, because they haven't even bothered. It's just, frankly, fucking absurd. I just cannot understand why people just believe so hard in beating someone up, beating them up when they're down, and also just saying these things without solid evidence. We can prove that Nigel Farage is a grifter, for example, because of the suspicious donations he took. We can prove that Keir Starmer is probably a grifter as well, given the suspicious donations he took. And Rupert Lowe is suspicious as fuck, given his partner in crime is literally Elon Musk, also I believe a pedophile, much like Trump, and was BFFs with Trump at some point, worth noting. So it really shows, and yet people won't even argue against this, and it's just fucking crazy. It's absolute nonsense. I genuinely cannot understand the state of this world and what it's doing now. Yeah, like, this is the big thing here. So trying to think what else to add here. I think it's important. Some people do need to change the way they argue about these things, and also be effective in how they do it. Because again, if you want to win me over, do something like Reform, I'm open to it, but you need to make the argument. You need to score the goalposts, you need to do everything the Greens are doing, and better, and prove that immigration is actually harmful, which is going to be the harder thing to convince me of, as that seems to be the main point. But so far nobody's done it, so again, the effective arguing really hinders on that. So because nobody's actually done it, well, ain't really got any solution here. So, I guess I'm fucked. Anyway, I don't really have anything else to add, I don't think. Just think this is a somewhat important topic, regardless. Something that had to be said, and people need to act better when it comes to this shit. Literally. It's frankly absurd that we can have a society where people do not give a fuck about changing someone's mind, making an effective argument, when it's so necessary. Are you kidding me? And given we're heading towards that Trumpian future, as I'm pretty sure it's starting to be called, Yeah, it's not ringing any bells, it's not ringing... It is ringing bells, it's just not a good sign though. It's ringing alarm bells, is what I mean to say. And that's going to be so fucking harmful. Like, literally, it's just going to be some of the most horrible shit. So, yeah. So, I don't really know what else to add. So I shall move on from this topic. So now. So I just heard of this group recently called Palestine Action, and it is sort of apparent that whatever's going on with this, it seems like if anyone even supports it, you could go to prison. Which is just fucking bizarre. Like, is there even a site for them? Because I'm wondering. Like, what is it that they do? I'll look up Sign Action Group. Because also you need to know what this is. Okay, so organisation.org. Find a target, take action. Protesters begging the powers that be to dig a well. Direct action is digging them well and daring them to stop. Okay, so that's what they do. Strategy, direct action, disruption, sustain, dilemma, focus, sacrifice. So yeah, the sacrifice is an important part of that, I suppose. You know, the way the world's going at this point, people who do take this action honestly don't really care. Because no matter what happens, things are still going to be bad, but as long as they stop something at least, to them, it will be a just cause, it will be good. But you're not going to stop that by arresting them and putting them in prison for, what, 14 fucking years? For saying you support it? Let that sink in a bit. Because let's say there's an opposite here, which Owen Jones just did bring up in the video, which is why I heard about this first. Well, actually, second. I heard about it on Blue Sky first. But, you know, I'm an autistic, disabled person, learning difficulties, many other issues too. But it's sort of this crap that makes me most vulnerable, because this is essentially picking people out of society to literally murder them. It's in its own way another genocide. I don't think people realise the full extent of this, of what's actually going on here. Because this is what we're seeing. If you can get put in prison for however many years for supporting action against a genocide, then something's deeply wrong here. They're literally trying to pick off, quote unquote, the weak, because that's what they think, but in reality it's not true. I'm pretty sure there's even studies going into this, I can't remember actually. But I'm pretty sure most people with these specific problems end up being some of the strongest fucking people alive, mentally and physically. So this whole pick off the weak or pick off the opposition doesn't work. But then I want to obviously give the example that Owen Jones did, which is, let's say there is a group that supports the opposite. So maybe they support Israel, for example. And this group says, we need to take direct action against pro-Palestinians. And obviously that entails many different things. Obviously, same sort of goals, like direct action, protest, and obviously down the line is obviously sacrifice, whatever that may be. And unfortunately, it would be even more extreme if it was pro-Israel. That's the problem with this as well. But again, this is a hypothetical, so it's not real, as far as I'm aware. But let's say that's a thing, and they actually encourage hurting, or even straight up murdering or damaging property of pro-Palestinians. Then we've got a big problem there, because for some reason the actual terroristic and dangerous organisation is being let free, whilst the one that isn't, or is at least less likely, is being imprisoned. And obviously I need to leave a quote there, which I heard probably a year ago now. And that is so I was trying to remember it now. It's completely blanked my mind again. Another mental health issue to diagnose, but I don't know what that is. There's something about if you're crunch, if protesting is a crime and your country is run by criminals, and yeah, that's true. Because if you're just arresting protesters for standing for what's right, and even in some cases what's wrong as well, because like, I can sort of see that being allowed, obviously. But if you're arresting people for that, then that obviously indicates a criminal mindset. So again, something's deeply wrong here. And given the recent auction that took place with the selling of Palestinian land, or specifically like the West Bank. Was it West Bank or was it East Bank? I can't remember now, fuck. I'm so out of the loop and just not well at the moment. But with something like that, there is obviously something wrong. And it's land that they don't even own. It's land that they've quote unquote conquered. So that's the level of absurdity here, but people need to realise that things can only get worse, and then governments also need to realise how badly they are shooting themselves in the fucking foot and the head at this point. Because what you're doing is equivocal to someone who's trying to stop a criminal. And if you're arresting someone for trying to stop a criminal, even though that thing is heroic and maybe even questionable in the worst case scenario, where it's like, trying to think, what the fuck is it? I was trying to think what it was now. It's not coming to mind for some reason. Fuck, my mind's just blank again. And a lot of this criminal shit just doesn't make sense. Because it is just like inherently a criminal thing that we're witnessing here. Again, my mind's blanked. I got fucking distracted again. It's the problem with being mentally ill, I suppose. Yeah, like the world is just so fucking terrible at the moment. Literally just, everything's backwards. Yeah, that's the thing, the governments are shooting themselves in the head and the foot. All the way around, but yeah, it's still happening. But when you start to fill prisons with people, again, as was said before by Owen Jones, when it's the, again, 50-year-old elderly women, or sort of almost elderly, being put in prison as the average criminal, and also the average arrest for that matter, then there is obviously a problem here. It shows that there is something deeply wrong with the country and with the laws in place here. Because there is no chance that these people are actually criminals. And again, with that situation where if you do stop criminals, now let's say it's like a handbag theft, if you arrest people for saving that handbag and obviously suppressing the criminal, then what the fuck are you even doing? You make the world a worse place. You create tons of different problems for the world. And it just creates non-stop fucking issues. Like, is this the sort of world you want? Where people actively steal handbags and phones out of people's hands? And that's something that does happen, by the way. And people who shoplift, people who rape, and people who abduct children. You don't want people to stop them? Is this what I'm hearing? Like, I want to hear a statement from Keir Starmer within the next month. Because this genuinely fucking scares me. There's no way this is the world that he wants. I refuse to believe it, because this is almost worse than Trump. It has to be said. I don't know how badly US citizens are treated with like protests and stuff, but I can almost guarantee you it's not this bad. Even with the few gun deaths that happen, unfortunately, because obviously people are just power hungry and out of control. But it can't be this bad. Even then, I think they have a system where, under legal rights, they can actually stop criminals without being arrested for it themselves, if you're a citizen. It shows just devastating issues here, and massive issues, massive problems, whatever you call it. So that's why a lot of this just makes no sense. And the coercing from, was it the Home Office Minister? I can't remember who it is now. But that coercing or trying to arrest a party leader for saying they support Palestine action is just fucking ridiculous. Not to mention absolutely unprofessional. Because that's not what your job is. Your job isn't to get people arrested, as far as I'm aware. What is the Home Office? Okay, Home Office. Where's the job? Well, I don't know what to look up. Civil service jobs. Life protected, that's Home Office, colleagues. Counter-terrorism, foreign crime safety, policing, immigrants and more. So yeah, like, this is also being considered a quote-unquote counter-terrorism thing, which I doubt it is, based on what I've heard, and the thing that I'm looking at with all this is also what actual organisations are saying, and also what we can learn from them. So organisations have actually reviewed, obviously, things happening between Israel and Palestine and even, I think, Lebanon. They all say that this is a genocide. And even then, the EU and the UN, as far as I'm aware, they all stand with the idea of arresting Netanyahu, who's obviously cultivating this, who's committing these serious fucking crimes, war crimes for that matter. It's pretty much demonstrably proven at this point. And how much evidence is it going to take? Also, in line with something like the under-16 social media ban, I also have to mention that every step that's being taken in it is just completely out of touch and just not even based in reality anymore. I'm someone who grew up when smartphones were barely a thing. It just became a thing. And they were good. They weren't terrible, but they weren't, they weren't good, but they weren't terrible. And it was fine like that, for sure, even with the social media stuff and YouTube even. But the issue is, you're not making decisions based on what good can be done. You're making decisions to fake protecting people. Because what you believe is protecting them isn't actually doing that. And everyone can call you a bluff on this, because the bluff here is that, again, you're claiming you're protecting someone, but you're also compromising them, which is where I obviously bring the out-of-touchness with us. Because if you need your ID to prove something, then your ID is out there, especially if it's saved, because I'm not even sure about those who keep it temporarily. But it's putting you up for sale. That's what this is. It's basically human trafficking. Well, that's almost what's happening here. And if it's not human trafficking, it's identity theft. Because technology is evolving constantly. And if you had even heard the news recently, which should have made you stop this decision, by the way, to ban social media for under 16s, you know that there's stupidly powerful AI out there that can find cybersecurity breaches. And it's so strong that the US had to ban it from appearing outside the US. Like, that's how fucking bad it is. And they never act on anything related to AI, unless it's for monetary gains. But the fact there's something that strong is already proof enough that implementing any sort of security measure that involves compromising someone's specific details is just going to backfire. It's gonna just fuck you up. It's gonna be insane. So there are some clear issues here. And it obviously shows. Like, what do I even fucking say? It's just insane level of, well, I don't know what to call it. Is it cognitive dissonance or no? But it's still like being out of touch. And this is what I mean with other things here as well. To supposedly be a human rights lawyer, which I don't really believe anymore, because that just doesn't seem right, even based on previous interviews that apparently exist. But none of this indicates that you are in touch with humanity. And that's a big claim, but I can prove it. There are many things that prove it here. Being friends with Donald Trump, a convicted rapist and paedophile, and yet you still implement a social media ban for under 16s, which requires ID. And then you host a banquet for them and other billionaires. For some reason. Like no other government does that, as far as I'm aware. They don't invite billionaire friends along. So what's the fucking deal with that? And then you start creating all these laws to arrest people, fill prisons up with people who haven't done anything wrong, and can't even be proven to be terrorists either, because that's an important thing. Holding a sign is not terrorism. It is if it's obviously harmful to a certain side, but again, with the evidence from other organisations, other countries, the evidence is pretty clear. What they're doing is not terrorism. It's actually basic human decency and dignity. But so many things here are showing worrying signs, and it's what I would call doomsday essentially. And as I've obviously started to educate myself on law and stuff, it's become very transparent that everyone else needs to as well. Because if you're going to be convicted for saying any fucking words, then it's just going to get out of hand. Like, I'm not a political channel by any means. First and foremost, I'm a gamer, but I'll also discuss the morality of things. Because in my past, I've not done good things. It has to be said. But I'm trying to redeem myself and find peace the best way I can. And I'm not gonna let people say to me that I'm not allowed to have it because of my past. That's ridiculous. That's why I started talking about this. That's why I started looking into independent journalism. Discovered through that how there is an ongoing genocide in Palestine. Again, the evidence is out there. Organisations have proven it. It's not me saying it. They've proven it. I take their word for it. And I'll take their word over a government because, as we've seen with governments, they can be corrupt. They can be absolutely broken and absolutely evil as well. That's been proven too many times now. So, that's my stance on this, obviously. It's quite a hard pill to swallow, but yeah, this is the world we're in, I suppose. Yeah, they'd rather arrest someone and convict them for 14 years for doing direct action against what is essentially terrorism, and people who actually do terrorism, like the riots, like the fascist riots as well, the fascist protests as well, because they're not all nice. They prefer to arrest the people who want peace. That tells you enough, doesn't it? If holding a flower gets you killed, if holding a photo of a victim gets you killed, even if you know them or not, then just what the fuck is going on? I say arrested, but killed, probably the next step up. That's probably likely to happen as well. Because when they start to fill the prisons, it will eventually become night-night for a lot of people, sadly. Both old and new prisoners. And also, like, let's not forget a lot of people in these prisons probably never had one. Had a conviction, I mean. Whatever the conviction is, because I'm not even sure what it can be. It's like I discussed with the four people, I forgot who it was, I think maybe this was what the topic was about. Maybe the Labour Palestine action. But with those people, the thing that they're convicted of is not provable. And every organisation goes against that. Once again, I have to mention what they did was inherently property damage. If it's terrorism, you need to find the motive, because terrorism implies there is a motive behind it to inflict harm or fear into others. So if you think it's inflicting harm or fear into the Israeli people, or wherever else thinks they're threatened by Palestine, basically, I was going to create it to say, but it's probably not a good example. You need to prove it. Just need to debunk things, and from an evidence perspective, as I've argued for years now, it's very apparent that we need that answer. Otherwise everything's just unjustified, and I also have to say, all of this just fuels civil war and revolt, because that's what's happening now. There's a fascist uprising from Reform, Restore voters, and maybe Conservatives, but also, I'll say, like, ex-Labour people as well. There are definitely people out there who are supporting Labour but also don't want immigrants. But again, having all these rules and stuff in place for quote-unquote counter-terrorism is just nuts. But you're also fueling a further divide and a bigger civil war. Because this is just the world you create. You arrest too many people, you fucked up. You start killing people because they're protesting, you've officially fucked up. There's so many fucking warnings here. As I said, I'm pretty fearful of everything here. And I'm not even going to say my own sort of comments on the former topic that I said at the beginning. But all I can say is, with regards to everything, the longer you stray away from the truth, the longer you stray away from caring about your own country, your own population, the rights of both the right and the left as well, because let's not forget, it's the only way you're going to win them over. The longer there's going to be discourse, it's going to be chaos, and then eventually war. You're going to see the worst of humanity come out because of your own actions, because you chose a few £1 billion to satisfy your greed. And that, again, says a lot. So I don't have anything else to add, and also it's probably the end of the podcast, because, yeah, it's gone on long enough. Jesus Christ, I didn't expect it to. But there's a very real danger here, and, you know, I just want to see peace in the world, and I want to be in a proper situation where I can just be mentally safe and mentally, well, the opposite of handicapped, really. I guess bright or standing out, I don't even know. Anyway, thanks for listening. Sorry to end on such a sour note, but this has to be said, I think. Even a few people here, it just has to be said. So yeah, let's see you, hear you next time maybe. I don't know.